Good evening, everyone. We have a great pleasure to have with us tonight Mr. David O'Dell, who is the Organizational Strategist for the Cleveland Opera and a long friend of ours.
Very long, yeah.
Very long. It has
Old
been-
friend, yeah.
We met maybe 7 years ago.
Oh, I think it was probably longer than that.
Maybe
but
10.
Yeah, maybe 10,
Yeah.
maybe 15, maybe more.
You're
I'm not sure.
From Opera America conferences, but also I visited his opera at Amarillo at the point when he was the director of a large organization there in Amarillo, Texas. So welcome to Cleveland, Ohio. We're thrilled and privileged to
Thanks,
have you
Dorota.
here. And the first question is about you. If you wanted to tell us the important things about your life as an
Sure.
artist, as a director, as a person,
Okay,
please.
terrific. Well, I grew up in St. Louis, so I'm a Midwesterner. Southern Midwesterner, but a Midwesterner nonetheless. I had a pretty, I think, standard Midwestern background. I was a young musician. I was drawn to music at an early age. I studied the trumpet. I became a singer in the church choir. I did my high school musicals, all of that stuff. Trotted off to school to become a performer, basically, a vocalist. Decided at that point that really what I wanted to do with my life was to be a singer. And so I had a kind of a checkered past. I attended a lot of different universities for a short time. I spent a year at the College of Worcester in the mid-70s. I saw my first opera actually here in Cleveland many years ago in the 70s when the Metropolitan Opera still toured. It was a production of Aida.
Aida.
Yeah, Gilda Cruz Romo and Jimmy McCracken as Radames. I assume, though I don't have a lot of memory because we were in and out so quickly on a bus, but I assume it was down at Playhouse Square, one of the theaters. And it was an overall great experience. Haven't been back to Cleveland since, but until this trip, which is quite nice. We, after school, I did my apprenticeships well, first I started as a young singer in St. Louis, at Opera Theater of St. Louis, in the third season of that company's existence. So, late 70s, opera was never particularly popular or successful in St. Louis, but in the late 70s, a group of citizens in the community banded together and started a company, and they convinced Richard Gaddis from Santa Fe Opera to come to town and start a fledgling opera company. That was Opera Theater of St. Louis, and I sang several years for that company as a young singer. I then did an apprenticeship in Santa Fe, studied a bit with John Wussman at the University of Illinois, so I have that. Also Big Ten kind of connection to the Midwest, and trotted off to San Francisco for a bit, sang with the San Francisco Opera Center a little, and with a lot of Bay Area opera companies at that time. Moved to Charlotte, North Carolina as a young artist, and ended up in the Research Triangle Park area. Was sort of unsatisfied with the state of opera in the Carolinas at that time, because I was I was one of the first of the generation of young American singers that didn't go off to Europe to become a singer. Because of the proliferation of companies like Santa Fe Opera, and because of Opera Theater of St. Louis, and because of other big companies, regional opera companies that were forming after the Met stopped touring, suddenly there was a lot of opportunity in the country for young singers here in America. So So not being satisfied with the condition of singing and opportunity for young singers in the Carolinas at that point, in about, well, I guess it was the late 80s, early 90s or so, I formed an opera company that then merged into an existing opera company that had been founded by Robert Ward, the American composer, that had written the opera The Crucible, Pulitzer Prize-winning composer. And suddenly I was catapulted from, I sort of bluffed my way from singer, and suddenly overnight I was a general director of an opera company. And that's probably around when we maybe first met. Maybe mid-90s or so, I'm not
Maybe a little
maybe
later.
a little later.
A little later,
Yeah.
I think. But
So,
but I was impressed when I visited Amarillo
yeah.
that you did such a phenomenal work, especially in the educational area, attracting young people, students,
Right.
people of all ages, through opera performances and exposure and just the thrill of opera. So that was so obvious to me that since then I kind of registered it in my mind that I have to follow your footsteps and see when there will be a good opportunity to bring you over to Cleveland to show us what we do and perhaps plan things for the future.
Yeah, very good.
I also wanted to ask you, because this meeting, this interview is destined for the Polish radio program, as well as this evening, this recording. We're interested in your involvement in the Cleveland Opera, and particularly whether you have any connection to the Polish culture, exposure, any sentiment.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that one of the great things about being a young musician in St. Louis at that time was, when I first started singing, the conductor at the St. Louis Symphony was Walter Susskind. But very soon after that, Jerzy Semkow became the maestro at the St. Louis Symphony.
Jerzy Semkow himself.
Yeah, very, very, fine conductor. I would say at that point relatively unknown in the United States, but he was extraordinary musician, and at the same time that Opera Theater of St. Louis was being formed in St. Louis, the symphony had just begun a symphony chorus as well. And so I became a tenor section leader in the symphony chorus. I made my solo debut with the St. Louis Symphony probably at the age of 22 or 23. Wow. Singing the Benjamin Britten St. Nicholas cantata. But under Jerzy Semkow, my musical horizons were broadened quite a bit. I think we did a lot of Russian repertoire. First of all, we did the first version, the earlier version of Boris Godunov. We did The Bells. We did Lieutenant Kijé. We did, and finally and foremost, we did King Roger. So being prepared for the ensemble for those productions was pretty thrilling and pretty heady stuff.
Yes.
Pretty interesting for a kid that...
How striking was Król Roger for you?
Oh, it was marvelous.
Was it a discovery?
Yeah, it was eye-opening to me, right? Such beautiful, sumptuous music and such pathos and such, depth to the music. Yeah.
And did you sing it in Polish?
We did. Yeah, we were.
trained.
It was drilled into our head. Don't ask me to repeat any of it these days, but it was quite remarkable.
But the choruses are substantial.
They're huge, right?
Huge choruses.
Yeah.
Our opera did Król Roger in 2011, I believe.
Amazing.
And the chorus is just amazing.
Yeah.
And that was done in the space in First Baptist Church that
Yeah, which we just visited. Yeah.
Which we just visited.
Very nice. Yeah, the symphony course, at that time was probably about 120 voices or so. So it was a remarkable big, full orchestra with the St. Louis Symphony, and so I think that in those days Jerzy was doing a lot of recording too with Polish Radio Orchestra. He then went on to win the Grand Prix du Disque for, I think it was for the Boris, that earlier version than the one that we see at the Metropolitan Opera.
Right. I saw it in Warsaw.
So it was quite
splendid.
Yeah.
It was splendid.
Yeah, it was quite a remarkable opportunity for a young American singer. So we kind of got an international perspective in those days, even though we didn't study or travel abroad. We were fortunate to have
Great musicians.
Yeah, great musicians from around the world, really.
That's precious.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and it's what we all try to recreate.
Right.
It's what we've tried to recreate through my work, certainly in Arizona and other places.
Also, with this visit, you visited the Polish Cultural Garden.
I did.
And the Polish American Cultural Center.
This wonderful center, which is
and you're sitting in the museum where the Polish spirit lives, and the Cleveland Opera is located, has its headquarters. And if you could tell us a little bit about not only the Polish spirit, but also the gardens, the cultural gardens. What are you thinking of that phenomenon?
Yeah, well, I think it's a remarkable situation. All of those gardens, I think, it was really interesting to go through today and see, representation from, it was like the United Nations.
Wasn't it?
Right? So it was really, really wonderful. But to see the depth of community involvement and the spirit of, especially in the Polish gardens, I thought it was really, really wonderful. And all of this, the art and the sculpture and the history in this building it's really enlightening to me. I didn't know a lot of the stuff, and I've worked at times for, historical foundations, raising money for the Wisconsin Historical Foundation when we were there, and but I didn't know. I guess I didn't have a great depth of understanding, especially about Herbert Hoover's involvement with the Polish community. So
So as the Cleveland Opera is planning its future, and we're planning it together, you have it in your mind to continue with the big Polish repertoire, contingent of an in-depth look into the culture, and having some of the repertoire, reasonable percentage of it, devoted to the best of the opera in Poland.
Yeah,
right.
I think so.
Of the Polish origin.
As I looked through the repertoire sheet of what you've produced, several weeks ago we were writing, we were working on joint grant applications and things like that. And, at that point I really dug deep into the sort of the history of your organization and looked at the vast amount of repertoire that you've premiered in northern Ohio, excuse me, and it's just mind-boggling,
Yeah, we did tremendous amount of work.
Yeah.
A little, I would say, unique.
Yeah, I think quite, right?
And that's close to 70 premieres.
Yeah. What struck me was at the time I thought, this is predominantly wonderful Eastern European, heavily influenced by the Polish repertoire. But I was also struck by the number of, I at one point counted through the number of cultural
cultures
cultures that have been
represented.
represented on that list, and it was,
That's part of
It was
our
astonishing.
mission,
yeah,
is to like in the cultural gardens,
yeah,
show the cultures,
of
and you have
all,
no enemies.
right,
You know,
yeah,
it's that simple. If you start learning about the culture,
yeah,
start understand the other,
well,
then
that's it, I think.
everything changes. The
Well, and when you talk
perspective.
about, I think, underserved populations, I mean, there on that page, there were at least a dozen underserved populations, you know. So when you think of it in a broader context, it's really quite fascinating. And I love the repertoire, right? I mean, the Chopin
Thank you so much.
piano, you know, it's really sumptuous, beautiful music. So I have a deep love for it.
That's the best part, because that gives us a foundation and the basis to build our organization, being connected, and with your expertise, I think we're into a new phase for the Cleveland Opera, a new understanding, despite all the challenges that the present situation is bringing us. And if you see the next step, the future of the Cleveland Opera in general, what would that be?
Well, I think, you know, I have a lot of experience with educational outreach and sort of building family audiences, and certainly I think that that's a big component of what any opera company in any community should focus on. You know, at one point, you know, I led a company called Opera for the Young in Madison, Wisconsin, that only did 220, they did 220 performances a year under basketball hoops and gymnasiums and cafetoriums and, you know, abbreviated repertoire of, you know, of standard works for young children. But in Amarillo, what we were able to do was we were able to create sort of a family chamber opera series, bringing community together. I think we discussed a little.
That's the one that I saw, because
Yeah.
when I saw your repertoire, I was immediately attracted to something that had that educational purpose, that brought opera to the young audiences,
Right.
to the families, to new audiences. So that was the one I wanted to see. The
Right.
title of it?
It was called, that piece was called She Never Lost a Passenger.
Yeah, I know it was about Harriet
It was
Tubman.
about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad, and its intent was, you know, it was a piece that we produced during Black History Month, but you know, it's sort of a broader message than just African American.
And it was very
history.
moving. Your soloists there were
Yeah,
perfect for the roles, great professionals,
Yeah.
and the local voices were
Yeah.
amazing too. And I saw 2 performances filled with children, 2,500 seats in the auditorium.
yeah.
So close to 5,000 children saw it.
Yeah, it was a remarkable program, and all of that was, you know, funded by a lot of the major foundations in the region because
of that
it's
future.
important, yeah.
Because of the future
Yeah.
for opera and
You know,
for people's lives.
We, you know, with the state of music education and arts education and public schools and the cuts and, you know, the things that we've all had to go through over the last 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 years, you know. I mean, it's been a progression of less and less and less, and, you know, I think it's become incumbent on professional arts organizations to sort of slide in there and pick up some of the pieces, you know, to make sure that our kids and children and families kind of have this opportunity, and that they understand that the arts are an important part to civic engagement. That it really sparks the broader cultural conversation really in a community. It's the fabric of the community that sort of
Holds us together.
holds us all together.
Right.
And I think that we see a deterioration in that because we don't have enough opportunity to experience the arts in our communities.
Yeah, and we want to install something like that here in Cleveland, for the Cleveland Opera. We would like that center stage reserved for things that will have a future, that will bring some change, which people will be fascinated with, will be not only appreciate, but will enrich, will feel their life enriched in this manner. So we have a goal of restructuring it a little bit, and placing more emphasis on the educational part, and on involving more audience enthusiasts. I would say I don't like the word audience. It's as if you were sitting doing nothing. Well, people are creating it. The people who come to the performances, they are true creators.
Right. Yes. It's a collaboration.
Yeah.
Between the audience and the performers, I think.
So thank you very much, David.
Absolutely.
We're looking forward to the future. We're looking forward to the vision of the Cleveland Opera realized here in Cleveland with the Polish community, but beyond the Polish community, connecting us and connecting everyone in northeastern Ohio.
Well, this is an important part of the fabric that has nurtured this company for so long. So, I thank you, Dorota, for all of the many, many years of hard work, and to the Polish community for all of their support for so many years. Onward and upward, right?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.